Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out My Adventures with Superman, which has finally begun airing this week on Adult Swim and had a two-part opener titled Adventures of a Normal Man. So these two episodes introduced us to the world of the show and its version of Clark Kent, voiced wonderfully by Jack Quaid of The Boys fame, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, played by the ever-energetic Alice Lee and Ishmael Zahid, respectively. The story sees Clark and Jimmy both begin internships at the Daily Planet, where Lois Lane is already working. Although she's not a star reporter, she too is an intern, the coffee intern, who is trying to find the big story that will make Perry White take note of her, and she might just have found one as she uncovers a plot involving stolen military robots. Right off the bat, we are treated to some lovely moments between Lois and Clark, and really the whole cast. Jack and Alice's chemistry is just fantastic, and the whole cast has really great chemistry, and I like what they do with each of the characters, giving them little details, like Clark, helping, the cat out of the tree on his morning run, and then going to get like his pile of donuts from the local deli. It's just little things like that. And all the stuff they did with Jimmy as well. The stuff they did with Jimmy was really quite great. I like that he has a podcast that has 5 followers. He's a UFO nerd and he uses the codename Flamebird, which is just one of the myriad of awesome Superman related Easter eggs the writers peppered into the episodes. So like the past Superman animated series openers, the world of Metropolis is introduced to Superman proper in episode 2, and of course Lois sees a story in it, giving him the name Superman, as usually happens, and she wants to know everything about the strange visitor, which of course worries Clark since he doesn't want to get too close to this person and reveal too much of his secrets. I'm looking forward to seeing how they are actually going to play with this plotline, since so far they've done a good job deviating from certain parts of the familiar storylines, just like Clark's origins. I quite like the way they are approaching Clark's origins here. He knows he's got powers and is from somewhere other than Kansas, but hasn't really faced his past yet, which we see bits of in flashbacks to the Kent showing him the ship he arrived in, as well as a strange hologram of a one-eyed man talking in an alien language. How they also tackle the costume is kind of insane as well, as Superman now has a Sailor Moon-esque power-up sequence that sees the costume kind of materialize on his body. The New 52 tried to do something like this, where the suit was like always on him and would just materialize when he needed it, and I never really liked that, but here it makes sense. This is practically a shonen anime, so it's over the top with its power-up sequences, and that's to be expected, since that always happens in shonen animes. They also include Martha having a hand in creating the costume as well, so you get kind of the best of both worlds here. She comes up with the trunks and the belt to help break up the bodysuit, which I thought was a nice sort of nod to the fans always fighting about what's better, trunks or trunkless, and I like the trunks because, again, as she puts it in the show, they help break up the bodysuit and give it a little bit of color where it's needed. As both episodes go on, we learn a little bit more about Clark's past and how he comes from a Krypton that was destroyed, but one that was seemingly destroyed by war when someone fired what looked to be a weapon at Rao, the son of Krypton, and caused it to explode. I'm really eager to see more of this version of Krypton, and what we got here was actually really quite cool. I like the design of Jor-El, which one of the designers said they really based it on Big Boss, and it totally looks like it with the eye patch and the big beard. The real tech design of Krypton was cool as well, and I like the almost Phantom Zone like Fortress of Solitude type crystal place that Clark gets taken to when he visits his father. It's very much invoking obviously the Chris Reeve films with that sort of crystal Krypton design, but then it's also something new with like tech-based stuff as well all around the area. So it's kind of, again, the best of both worlds. We also do get some flashbacks to Krypton, and they're very brief, and we get to see, the usual, they load him into the cryopod and he gets sent off the planet explodes. We also see some other stuff like a portal opening in the shape of the House of L symbol, like the diamond shape, but it's like red and there's like someone evil in it, and again, it just being on Krypton, it makes me think, oh, maybe this is Zod. Maybe this is their version of Zod that they're hinting at maybe as like an overarching villain of the entire series, which would be quite cool. Speaking of villains, let's talk about the two villains of the episodes. The main villain of both episodes is Leslie Willis, who comic fans will know as Livewire. Here she is an arms dealer trying to sell off these big stolen robots, and she eventually gets her electricity powers in the second episode, and she gets them in an accident that might be related to Kryptonian technology. It's only ever alluded to, and I am sure that's going to be a running plot throughout the entire series. On top of her and her robots, we also get Slade Wilson. Now this is, I guess, before he actually becomes Deathstroke, because he's been anime-ified in this. He's, the hot anime villain. He's got the bangs down the one side of the face to cover his eye, almost like he's got something wrong with his eye, or, just obviously alluding to the fact that he's going to be wearing an eye patch very soon. But I kind of like what they do with him here, where he's working for a shadowy cabal, which we later learn is just Amanda Waller and Task Force X, but I like that he's very charming and very kind of full of himself a little bit, much like an anime villain would be, a young anime villain would be. And he also ends up kind of unwillingly teaming up with Superman in the end there to fight Livewire, which was quite interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to him being involved in this. He's not, a Superman villain. He's just a villain who, fights Batman, Green Arrow, all types of people. So I like that he is here, and we're going to see more villains like him, because obviously Amanda Waller's involved, and the Task Force X and Suicide Squad. So I'm very much intrigued to see their designs and how they look in this show. So both Slade and Livewire were great first time out villains for Clark to deal with. They aren't throwing him in the deep end and having him battle, Lex or Bizarro or Zod or Doomsday right away. So it feels like the writers actually care to build out a world around Superman, and in turn are building out his rogues gallery. The villains aren't the only comic characters that make jump into the anime, as the Newsboy Legion, or in this case the News Kid Legion, and Flipper Johnson end up factoring heavily into the premiere. I for one love a good old deep comic book cut, and you don't really get any more deeper than the Newsboy Legion. Again, it just proves that the writers have done their research. They know what these things are in the comics and how much they mean to people like me, and hopefully we get to see a couple more deep cuts, like people like Snapper Carr turning up somewhere down the line. Design-wise, I love everything about the show. The anime style fits super well with the retooling of Superman's origins, and it's actually impressive how much they lean into it, especially with the action, which feels like something like out of Dragon Ball Z, especially with how Superman moves. He's very much visualized in that classic anime sort of speed lines where they sort of disappear and reappear over in another part of the scene, kind of like they do in Dragon Ball Z. The design of the killer robots as well is just straight out of Evangelion. They look exactly like Evas, yet still somehow retain a classic comic book look thanks to the numbering on the shoulders and the very long, thin arms that the mechanical monsters in the Fleischer cartoons had. The idea also to make Superman a shonen anime seems like so obvious. It seems so obvious as well, and how it took this long to actually go with it is just insane, especially when you've had shows like this for ages, especially when you look at stuff like Dragon Ball Z, My Hero Academia, which borrow a lot from Western superheroes, especially people like Superman. My Adventures of Superman had an extremely strong opening 2 episodes, setting up the familiar but putting a really cool shonen anime inspired twist on it all, and more importantly of all, having a lot of fun with it, just like what something involving Superman should be. I'm going to give these openers a 10 out of 10, so definitely check it out. And if you want to check out more of my content, why not come and see what I thought of week 1 of DC's new event Night Terrors, or how John Kent is going to deal with the Injustice Superman over in Adventures of Superman issue 5.